Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the High Point Hello, which is a sponsor this week. It's presented by Segra, the official TV, cable, and internet provider of the High Point Panthers. I'm Kevin McMahon, and we have Camryn Brown with us, women's basketball star. She just graduated during the spring when the season and the school year were canceled, so we didn't get to say a formal goodbye. She's already got a new job here as an assistant coach. So what's up, coach? Is that something weird to say?
Yes, I'm still getting used to people calling me that. People will say it and I'm like, oh, right, you're talking to me? Sorry. But yeah, I love it. I love hearing it.
So I want to ask you about something to get started. And you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you've known you wanted to be a coach for a long time. Did you know coming into High Point that that's what you wanted to do?
I've known probably since I was about 10 years old that I wanted to coach. I bought my first whiteboard when I was in 5th grade because I felt, the coach might need a little help with like end of game plays or something like that. But it's always what I've wanted to do. And so when I came into High Point, I already knew that I wanted to coach. So I was kind of that person that was always in the coach's office like, hey, what you doing? Can I see what you're doing? Show me that. Or, just wanting to be around them because I knew that's what I wanted to do. So this is really like a dream come true for me.
Did you ever look at some of your playing, especially when you're at college? Did you ever look at that kind of almost as while you're, having your playing career, it's almost kind of like an internship too? Did you ever look at it that way?
Yeah. And for some of my coaching classes, because I had a coaching minor during my time at High Point, we were required to do some shadowing stuff, which, like I said, I was already doing a lot of that anyway, just on my own time. But some of the classes and different things that I did during my undergrad studies required me to do that anyway. So then I got those shadowing opportunities in the coach's office. And just as a point guard too, you get that perspective and you watch a lot of film and do those things with the coaches. So that was all very helpful in getting this role too.
I have two sadder questions because they talk about the end of the season, the way it happened this year, and then we'll get to the happy stuff and about your career, and we can reflect on some of the great things you did here at High Point. But we have to get kind of to this stuff as well. But I think you're going to give great answers.
Yeah.
So obviously the season got canceled. The Big South tournament did not happen. And just to be clear, the team was on a roll, but you personally were playing as well as you ever had. So there was expectation that you guys were, really going to have a great tournament, and we could tell like you guys felt good. So on the bright side, talk to us about how good you guys were feeling going in and kind of those last couple of games, the way you guys were rolling, and then, having to deal with that sudden loss.
Yeah, I think everybody on the team felt really confident at that point where we were at in March. We had the best winning streak in the league at the time, and I think just as a team and individually, like all of us, we felt really, really good about how we were playing, how we were gelling off the court and on the court. Like the vibe was just really, really good. And so coaches, trainers, players, I think everybody from the top down felt really good about going into that tournament. We felt really confident. So it was disappointing is kind of an understatement that we didn't get to play, because I really felt like we had a really good chance to win the tournament. And for me, just personally, that was always my goal. My goals to accomplish at High Point weren't about individual accolades. They never were. I really didn't think about any of that. My ultimate goal was for us to win the conference championship and go to the NCAA tournament. Like that's all I really wanted. And because I felt like we had such a good chance this year, and it being my last year made it that much more important to me. And so that was really, really difficult. But you got to push through it. And I think this coming team that they have coming in this year has another great shot to win it. And so I'm going to be cheering them on the whole season.
When did you flip the switch of trying to process what happened to, okay, I guess my season is over and I need to start looking for a job now and I want to be a coach?
Yeah. I would say I gave myself a couple weeks to kind of grieve the loss because it was so sudden and
Yeah.
unexpected. And at that point, I really hadn't decided, do I want to keep playing? Like, do I want to try and go overseas, or do I want to, get into coaching? And I went back and forth with that for quite a little bit just because, it kind of felt unfinished, because my career just kind of got chopped off and there wasn't really closure or a solid ending. And so I went back and forth with that. And then probably around early April is when I decided, I'm going to look into both, but I'm really probably leaning more towards getting into coaching just because it is always what I've wanted to do. And if I can get in right now when the market is really tough, then I'll have a spot moving forward. And I just needed to get some experience too. So I'd say probably about a month-ish I kind of took to process those things and figure out what I really wanted to do. And then I started looking for jobs. And it's weird because I was going to go to So You Want to Be a Coach that the WBCA puts on at the Final Four. And that had been my goal since high school. Like, I wanted to go to that. I wanted to meet all these amazing coaches, network, and those things. When that got derailed, I had to figure out, what's the next step. But it took me probably about a month.
So that kind of leads me into my next question. You're so good because you hit it. But this is actually from women's basketball SID and documented Camryn Brown fan, Joe Templin. But he wanted to know kind of about finding out that So You Wanted to Be a Coach got canceled, or, how it did that process. And as you kind of alluded to, was that a big goal of yours to be invited?
Yeah. So it's funny because when I came into High Point, one of the assistant coaches on our former staff, she had attended So You Want to Be a Coach. And that's really kind of how I found out about it. And, I came in as a freshman thinking, hey, sign me up for that. Like, I want to do that. And they're like, can't, calm down. You can't do it till you're a senior. I said, okay, senior year, we're going to come back to that. Like, I'm going to do that one day. And so it was one of my biggest goals for this season, honestly. I knew from the beginning, I was like, all right, senior year, So You Want to Be a Coach? That's on there. I got to get that done. And so, one, I was super happy to find out that I even got in because that's a very high honor. A lot of people try to get into it and you don't. And so I was very excited and grateful about that. And then, obviously as conference championships started to get canceled and then eventually the whole NCAA tournament got canceled, I knew once the tournament was done, there wasn't going to be the conference. So You Want to Be a Coach. And so, again, that was just another thing where I was like, man, I really wanted that conference championship and So You Want to Be a Coach. Those were two big things that I wanted coming in to High Point, and to have both of those taken away so suddenly. And I was getting so excited about both of them because they were right around the corner. It was really, really difficult. And it was even harder because I was like, now I don't know how I'm supposed to get a job because my plan was to go down there and meet a bunch of people. So I had to pick up a new plan to kind of figure out what was next.
I want to ask one more High Point question, then we'll get into kind of the search process and where you are now. But I know you said you don't like to talk about you don't think about the accolades that you received that much. The team stuff's more important. I do want to ask about one and then one more question, but one more High Point question. But you made the NCAA starting five 1 week after you had I think it was 40 points in a game. So
it was 44.
44. Yeah, please let me know. I don't want to take any points away from you. So, we had you on the coach's show. We talked about that, but you mentioned it there, and you gave a great answer. But what was, because like your senior year, you were really coming into your own and making national headlines. What did that feel like? So while you didn't get to finish your career in the tournament, you had quite the senior year. If that's the last, I feel like you can look back and go, hey, man, I did pretty good.
Yeah. I definitely look back on it and, like you said, even though it wasn't the ending that I wanted or expected, I'm really happy with how my senior year ended. Obviously, winning the accolades that I did and getting that recognition, like, I had followed the starting five. I knew what it was, but I never thought I'd be on it. And so those things were really, really cool. And honestly, my attitude through the whole season was like, is this really happening? Like, I was just having so much fun. Like, I haven't had that much fun playing basketball in a long time. And so for it to be my senior year, I was having that much fun. The team was successful. I was successful on an individual level. I really couldn't have asked for much more. I enjoyed every minute of senior year, honestly. It's kind of a dream a little bit. And I was really grateful and kind of humbled too, just because I don't think a lot of people expected me to have that sort of breakout year. So it felt really, really good. Yeah.
Last High Point question, then we'll get to your journey to where you are now. But
Cool.
being able to see two different coaching staffs, do you think that's going to help you as a coach? Because you were under Coach Hendricks, now you had Coach Banbury in her first season. Do you think being able to see two staffs kind of is going to be something they go, hey, I got to see how two different people kind of do this thing?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think I had the opportunity to play under two very successful coaches. I mean, I know Coach Banbury's only been a head coach for a year, but look at what she did in her first year, like us finishing third, and she was up there in Coach of the Year votes. So playing under both those coaches, I learned a lot about things that I want to implement as a coach, things that I like, things that I maybe didn't like or I'd like to do differently. It was a really good learning experience that I'm super grateful for, and I'm definitely going to carry over and take with me a lot of the stuff that I learned from both of them, 100%.
So talk to me how you go from point guard at High Point to, one of the next, shining young coaches in Division II as an assistant. How did that happen? Walk me through it, and how did that process go?
I'll tell you, Kevin, it was quite the process. Listen, I'm telling you, I kind of had to start from square one, like I said, because I was like, wow, well, my plan out the door. So let me try and get myself together and figure out, what I'm going to do next. And so what I did was I went back through all my old recruiting stuff. I kept all that. And I was one of those students of the game that every time I would talk to a coach, I would write down their information. What were we talking about? And I still have all that. So I went back through all that stuff, found the contact information of those old coaches, and I started reaching out to all of them that I built pretty good relationships with. And, it was kind of funny because things would get really, really good, and I'd think, oh, this might work out. And then it's like, oh, we're in a hiring freeze. Okay, and then things start to die down a little. It'll go back up. Oh, this might work out. You don't have any experience. And it was tough because, I got my master's in 4 years, which is great. I was so excited about that. I'm like, awesome. Like, that should put me ahead. But a lot of people go the route of going GA into eventually like Dobo assistant, whatever you want to do. And so it was an advantage that I had my master's, but also it kind of put me back because they were like, well, we have a GA spot. And I'm like, well, I don't really want to go back to school. So figuring out that dynamic was really interesting. And like I said, it just kept going up and down for multiple months. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, literally, I applied to the job at West Virginia State probably a month and a half before I heard anything. And then I got a call out of the blue from Coach Marshall, our head coach, and we did that interview process pretty quickly. And he offered it to me, and I was excited. I was like, this is an opportunity I can't pass up to be an assistant coach right out of college, which is, like I said, always been my dream. So I said, yes, I'm in,
Did you get recruited by Coach Marshall, or no? This was separately. When you were looking at your recruiting notes, was he part of your recruiting notes? No,
he was not. No, I had never met him before this process. It was really just, like I said, I saw the job was posted online. I was searching high and low, Kevin. I was searching
like anyone and everyone.
Right, anywhere, everywhere. I didn't care. I just wanted to know who had a job, who wasn't in a hiring freeze, and who was willing to give me a shot, even though I don't have any experience. And so I was like, listen, whatever it is. And so I saw the job post, and I had never really heard of West Virginia State. I had never talked to Coach Marshall, but I said, hey, they've got a job opening. They might take a chance. Why not? And so it ended up working out that way.
I know basketball is not a situation where you have like a coordinator, like, oh, I only work with the offense, I work on the defense. You know, you're going to work with both. You don't really have position coaches.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a certain aspect of basketball that you're excited to coach to these girls?
Yeah, I think here I'm really excited to add to their offensive philosophy a little bit. They're kind of known for their defense, and we press the whole game, and we trap the ball and do all these things, which we're kind of known for. But our offense hasn't been as fluid, I think, as it could have been. So I'm looking forward to getting my hands on that a little bit. And also the recruiting piece, I think I love building relationships with people. And so I'm really excited about that part of it too. I think I'm going to have a big kind of role in taking over our recruiting and doing that side of things. So I'm really excited about that too.
You've been outstanding. We knew you were going to be good, but you've been great. I have one more question for you. So you're 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
You're 2 weeks into the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was the thing that you were asked to do week one, or you were like, okay, easy, that people kind of thought was going to be hard for you, or they said like, oh, we have, like, was there something that you go, okay, it's going to be easy? And then what was the one that would go, okay, I didn't know about that? What was the biggest surprise? So what was the biggest easy thing, or not easy, but what was the biggest one? Like, oh, I got that one covered. And then what was the biggest one? Like, okay, that's kind of surprising. I didn't see that one coming.
I think the easiest thing probably was just, reaching out to the players, getting to know them. Like, I did that pretty early on. Like, once I got the job and Coach Marshall was like, hey, make sure you reach out to them. I was like, got that covered. Like, we're past that. Did that a couple days ago. We're good. And kind of reaching out to them, having them come in the office, and so I can get to meet them face to face. Probably the biggest shocker, I think it's just how to handle things in COVID overall. Like, but we're all trying to figure it out at the same time, and there's so many restrictions because we're trying to keep everybody safe. And so in my mind coming in, I'm thinking, this is how I've seen my coaches do it. This is probably how, I have an idea. Well, some of that looks entirely different. Like, right. We have to have even smaller groups for individuals, or, they got to get their temperature taken before all this stuff, like just those things. And like, I had no idea we were going to have to do any of that, So just trying to navigate all the COVID things and how to make plans, because you have to start preparing stuff like season's going to happen, but we don't know, what it's going to look like. So, I mean, I hope so. Fingers crossed. Like, I'm so excited. I got my first coaching job. I hope we get to play, but if we don't, like, we still have to figure out how to plan accordingly and what that looks like. What restrictions are we going to have? And all that type of stuff is like, ooh, wasn't ready for that, but we'll figure it out,
So always, a High Point Panther, but now at West Virginia State, Coach Camryn Brown. Coach, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Anytime.